Good morning, everyone. Welcome. I'm Emily Oglesby, Director of Communications at the Florida Department of Economic Opportunity. Thank you for joining our webinar about the Homeowner Assistance Fund and the State Small Business Credit Initiative. I want to provide a few housekeeping. Please make sure your lines remain muted at all times. We will take questions throughout the presentation in the chat feature. Feel free as the presentation goes on that you're welcome to enter your questions in. We will get to them at the end of the presentation. If we don't answer everyone's questions, we'll be sure to follow up with the answer to the questions. But please make sure that your phone lines are muted throughout the entire presentation. And I'm going to turn it over to Secretary Dane Eagle.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Secretary Dane Eagle. First, I want to thank my team for helping organize this, but also our partners at Enterprise Florida and the Florida Housing Finance Corporation. We have two very big programs we want to discuss today. Before we get into that, I'll turn it over to my partner here.
Dane, thank you so much. I appreciate everybody. I'm Jamal Sowell, Enterprise Florida. I wanted to thank our partners at DEO. It's always exciting to do work with them. Dane and I always joke that we play good cop, bad cop. I get to scout the businesses and Dane gets to be the compliant shop at the bank. So with that being said, this is a very great discussion today that we're looking forward to because of how many people this will help throughout the state of Florida.
And I'm Mike DiNapoli. I'm the Director of the Small Minority Business Capital here at DEO, and I'm happy to support both these two distinguished gentlemen on today's call.
Well, to kick it off, I want to thank you all for joining us. What we're doing today is really just letting the state know of two very important programs that are going to be administered by DEO in partnership with Florida Housing Finance Corporation and with Jamal's team, Secretary Sowell's team over at Enterprise Florida. During the March session of Congress, ARPA was passed the American Rescue Plan, and through that, two funds are going to be administered. One is the Homeowners Assistance Fund. I'll get into that first, and then we'll get into SSBCI, which Secretary Sowell will talk about, and then we're happy to answer questions and have a discussion moving forward. But the importance of you joining us today is really about awareness. These are two big pots of money that are allocated to us from the Department of Treasury to be administered in the state of Florida, and we want to make sure that the people of Florida are aware of them, and we will be utilizing our partnerships through lenders, community action agencies, chambers of commerce, you name it, to make sure that Floridians are aware that this assistance is available. I'll go ahead and jump into the Homeowners Assistance Fund. We'll get started. Thank you. So what is the Homeowners Assistance Fund? HAF, as we've come to call it, was established under Section 3206 of the American Rescue Plan of 2021, which, as I mentioned, was passed in March. It's administered by Department of Treasury at the federal level, and the funds through Governor DeSantis have been allocated to, or will be allocated, Department of Economic Opportunity. And again, we'll be working with our partners, Florida Housing and Finance Corporation, Enterprise Florida, to get those out to the communities across the state. The program allows Florida to provide funding for qualified expenses related to mortgages and housing to eligible homeowners. The fund was created to mitigate financial hardships associated with COVID-19 for the purpose of paying homeowner mortgage delinquencies, defaults, foreclosures, loss of utilities or home energy services. That could be your basic utilities, could be broadband, could be energy, could be water, sewer, you name it, and homeowner displacement. DEO is responsible for developing and submitting the plan to Treasury on Florida's homeowner needs, design of each program, and performance goals. We submitted that this past Friday, August 20th. We are waiting for feedback from the Department of Treasury, but that plan has been submitted. State of Florida was allocated $676 million to get out to the citizens of Florida. Next slide, please. So to be eligible for the program, based on funding availability, homeowners will be eligible to receive half if they live in 1 to 4 unit residences that are their primary residence, experience the financial hardship after January 21st, 2020. Have incomes that are less than or equal to 150% of the area median income or 100% of the median income of the United States. Greater, and funding will be provided to ensure assistance is available to the most vulnerable homeowners targeting incomes at 100% or less the area median income. Again, those funds are allowed for the following expenses: mortgage payments, financial assistance to reinstate a mortgage, assistance for homeowner utilities, internet services, insurance, broadband, delinquent property taxes, and counseling and case management services through HUD certified. Next slide, please. The plan again was submitted on Friday, but we are required to submit a plan that outlines homeownership landscape in Florida, estimated impacts of the coronavirus pandemic on homeowners, relief programs designed to avoid foreclosure and are displaced low and socially disadvantaged individuals. And we're waiting on authorization from the Department of Treasury to move forward. Next slide, please. Q&A, we'll go to this at the end, but I feel a few of those common questions will be, when can we expect to see funds? Again, that plan was submitted on Friday. Department of Treasury will review. And upon approval, those funds will be administered to us, at which point we will start working to get those out into the communities immediately. How is the fund distributed? Payments will be directly to providers, lenders, servicers on behalf of the homeowner. So it would go to the mortgage provider, it would go to the utility provider, you name it. You can learn more at floridajobs.org/HAF. And you can also email us questions at homeownerassistancefund@deo.myflorida.com. And we'll make sure that these slides are available on our website as well so that you can utilize them further. Next slide, please. Thank you very much. That's the end of my portion, at least for half. And I'll turn it over to Secretary Sowell to discuss SSBCI.
Thank you. So SSBCI is very exciting, which was created in 2010. And next slide, please. And what it is a federally administered program through the Department of Treasury and allocates funding to states for initiatives to help businesses access capital. The access capital piece is important for those who have small businesses because the funding will allow the state of Florida to design and implement credit programs to address specific capital market needs, which will provide small businesses with additional resources and capital to facilitate business growth and economic development. We have guidelines and allocations. Those will be determined for socially, economic, and disadvantaged businesses across the state of Florida. So whether it's the Panhandle, Southwest Florida, and Fort Myers, South Florida, Orlando, or Tampa, we want to make sure that everybody has access to this. SSBCI funds must be leveraged with private capital in the form of loans and or investments, which is a 10-to-1 portfolio leverage must be achieved. Next slide. Next, we have, so right now, about $324 million has been allocated to Florida for SSBCI. Funding will be made available in 3 separate disbursements, which I will have Mike Dinapoli talk about in a second. It will be $108 million is available for the first disbursement, of which 80% must be deployed for access to the second draw. Again, $108 million is available for the second disbursement, of which 80% must be deployed for access to the third disbursement. And the third disbursement is the remaining $8 million is available for the third draw. This allocation obviously includes $23 million for very small businesses. Very small businesses are defined as fewer than 10 independent contractors and sole proprietors. So the allocation for businesses owned and controlled by socially disadvantaged businesses, but also a performance-based allocation to states that support businesses owned and controlled by socially disadvantaged individuals. So with that term, we want to make sure that everybody has access to it. So we have technical assistance and everything to provide legal and support for accounting and advisory roles for that. And obviously all of this is really determined by the Department of Treasury. Next slide. So we have a strategy that will be in 3 disbursements. And yep, next slide, please. And Mike will go over that. Please go back. Yep, you got it. So with those disbursements, we have this year, next year, and the year afterwards. Please go back to the last slide. Yes, and I'll pass it along to Mike Dinapoli.
Thank you, Secretary. So this is an important slide. I think everybody take a look at it. We just pause on it. So as the Secretary indicated, there's $326 million coming to the state of Florida, of which $23 million needs to be allocated or targeted to very small businesses. So that leaves roughly $300 million to us. The first disbursement is going to be in the form of $108 million, in which, in order to get to our second disbursement, it's going to, we need to prove that we've allocated and put on the street 80% of those funds. And I believe we have it up there where it says $86 million needs to go out before we can go back and request Treasury for the second draw. Between the first draw and the second draw is where we're going to need a lot of feedback from communities, from the local chambers, CFIs, the local lenders, what's needed for us to construct and to allocate funds to the second draw. And you see 4 or 5 different listings there of programs that we anticipate using that have been authorized by the the legislation from 2010. So this is just a reauthorization of that legislation. And then that'll get us to our third draw of $108 million to the final draw. So it's a lot of money to come to the state of Florida, and we're looking for a lot of input from our partners on how to direct this money into the hands of small businesses.
Next slide, please. So for us, obviously, this shows when it will be available, and you go to the website to find more about it. And I want to stress that this governor, Ron DeSantis, has really been a champion for small businesses in the state of Florida. And that's so important for us. And this will be one of the, hopefully, many sessions that we can tell the state, tell everybody about this program and how to access those resources. That being said, I want to open up the floor for questions. And then we have a great moderator.
We'll now open the floor for questions. Please provide your questions in the chat feature and we will read them aloud and have the panel answer them. So Bill Spivey asks, please describe what collateral support program means.
I think the best answer for that is to go to the Treasury website, back to the 2010 SSBCI website, and it has a description of what collateral support is. There's also a lot of closeout documentation, white papers that are listed on Treasury's website that talks about the programs and how well they did. So I think that's the best place to look for the descriptions.
There's also a question about home energy services. He didn't hear about this today, but so was it removed?
Home energy service is still part of a HAF program that will be an available opportunity for homeowners to apply for those funding through HAF.
If I could just add to that, if we are, and I believe we do have on our website, the guidelines from Treasury on our website where all of the expenses are listed, all the eligible expenses are listed. So if you have any questions about what's allowable, please use that document. And I believe the date on that was August. It was August 2nd.
Yeah, actually, in slide 3 of the presentation, we do have on there loss of utilities or home energy services is a applicable opportunity for HAF.
I'm not seeing any more questions. Last call for questions.
I guess we did a good job.
Yeah, for sure. Well, listen, there's always an opportunity to ask more questions. We provided the email address, the website. I'm sure questions are brewing as you try to digest this information. Again, mainly the call to action today is to just start the conversation. This is a lot of funding that's been provided to the state by the federal government. The governor's goal is to get that into the hands of Floridians. It does no good sitting in bank accounts, just collecting copies. Want to make sure that people receive the funding that they need to help bridge the gap they might have felt during COVID. It's time to move forward, and we are here to assist and help, but we can only do so with your ability to help us communicate to your either your clients or your neighbors, friends, you name it. So stay tuned for more information. Feel free to lob us more questions over time. But as these plans are approved and the funding becomes available, you can be stay tuned for more information from us. I'll turn it over to Secretary Sowell for more closing remarks.
Yeah, so obviously I wanted to thank everybody who was here. For things such as SSBCI, they go up, they really are used for a wide range of functions like working capital, business procurement, franchise fees, equipment, inventory. And the goal is just to make sure that everybody in the state knows about the resources, but also people can access those. We want to see small businesses thrive. Last year, when other states were hurting in New York and Illinois and California, Florida really focused on small businesses, and we came out on top because we were making sure that every business is essential, especially when it's yours. So we want to make sure that those businesses are empowered for the future and for the success of our families.
I echo those comments strongly, and I see some questions coming through, so I think communications will go through some of those questions and answer those, or provide feedback to some of those questions at a later date.
Great. And Michael's going to do a great job coordinating these resources that are available and with our partners at EFI and at Florida Housing. So thank you, Director DiNapoli, for your work on these programs. I really appreciate it. And all the team at DEO and EFI and Florida Housing. We appreciate you, and thank you to our community partners for joining today. Look forward to discussing further.
We will email the presentation and some more information to all of those that joined today. Thank you for joining us.
Appreciate it.